Hey y'all, Eric Tessmer here in Austin, Texas. I'm clearly doing something different today. I'm the guy who always holds up the note cards or has the time-lapse videos for my workbench. I'm gonna do something a little different. I had a young guitar player reach out to me through Instagram and asked me if I would go through his wah pedal for him. He seems like a cool guy, sounds like a great player. It seems like a cool idea just to go through a video and show you what I think about wah pedals and how to get the sounds I want out of them. The wah pedal that he sent me, Elliot, this is his wah pedal. I've put Elliot's Instagram handle in the video description below, so you can go check out his playing, and then you can hear it when he gets his pedal back. When he sent it to me, he told me there was something wrong with it. The first step is to get it back to perfect working order, and then from there we can modify it. It doesn't really make much sense to modify broken stuff. What will be different about this, I mean, obviously this is the first time I've made a YouTube video where I'm just talking into my camera. It's incredibly awkward. I hope it doesn't ruin it for y'all. I promise to get better. Another big difference about this type of video is because I'm going to be giving you some audio clips. Hopefully they turn out and you can hear the difference in the wah as we go along. Alright, so clearly this wah pedal has some problems with it. It seems to cut out most of the time I press on it. By the way, this is in a rehearsal complex, so I think you can probably hear my neighbor practicing drums. He's doing good. I had to figure out why this thing is cutting out. I noticed that when I unplugged the cord a little bit, it would work like a little bit, like partial signal. Then when I hit the switch, obviously at that point it would cut out. So, just gonna tear it apart and see what I got. So I've spent some time on the workbench. I spent some time running back and forth, testing out this pedal. Some of the time, obviously, I didn't have the camera on, but when you're trying to find like a little ghost intermittent problem, sometimes you're just holding a wah pedal like this, plugged in, messing around with the insides, just poking different things, trying to see where this problem is. As it turned out, there was a nick, like a little dent or a divot in the circuit board itself, like it'd been damaged somehow. It just looked like a little scratch, but then when I cleaned it off and got it down to bare copper and then laid some solder over it, the problem went away completely. That said, as I was playing the wah pedal, I can hear some dirt in the pot. I can hear the switch kind of lag sometimes, and that can be just old, worn out, dirty corrosion. In old wah pedals, the number one two things that wear out that have to be replaced are the switch and the pot. The pot, as I'm saying, is a potentiometer. It's the thing that turns as you work your foot up and down on the pedal. Manipulating that is what makes the wah sound. A potentiometer is a variable resistor. Basically, you're telling the circuit different levels of resistance, which changes the information sonically. And that's all you really need to know about it at this point. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna replace the pot. Now, in a lot of audio applications, you want a pot with an even taper, and that means, like, if you're looking at a graph, it would be a line that goes straight diagonally, just a straight line. So that is an even result, so that you can, you know, quantify everything. However, with a wah pedal, you want something with an arc, and so it'll go even to a point, or arc pretty even. At some point it kinks, and that kink is what a lot of players refer to as a sweet spot. This wah pedal's current pot has a pretty even taper. There's not much of a sweet spot. The wah pedal itself doesn't sound bad, but the taper leaves a lot to be desired. With the mystique of old wah pedals, there is a pot that reigns king above them all. If you know anything about wah pedals, you know it's called the iCar. The iCar pot is known for having that little kink, and that little kink is what you really like. Just like a good player on a wah pedal will just live on that. Manipulating that kink is where you get the vocal quality, like the point where your mouth opens. I'm saying words now. That's what we want. The two things that Elliot has sent me with this wah are a replacement pot and a switch. I'm going to replace the pot first so you can hear the difference in the taper, and then I will true bypass this wah, the next step, and then you can hear the difference. It does change the sound of the wah a little bit. It sounds a little more aggressive. As far as reproduction or replacement pots for wah pedals, I've tried a lot of them, and there's only one that I'd really suggest if you're trying to get that vintage taper, that kink that you can really work with, the sweet spot. And that my buddy Nick turned me on to him years ago, Chase Tone True Talk, and it's a replica taper of some really badass old iCar pots. Let's get after it. Alright, so I've got the pot replaced. It's doing better, it sounds better, but this brings up a great chance to show you how to, I guess I'd like to say, calibrate your wah. If you notice, when the wah has a lot of travel, where the wah has all this extra place where it doesn't really make any difference in the tone. So what I have to do, there's this little gear in here. As the gear runs, it changes the position of the pot. So what you have to do to adjust it is to skip teeth on the gear. On some of the really old wahs, some of the early Clyde McCoys, I have a Clyde McCoy prototype, some old Vox volume pedals that had this, but instead of having the little plastic loop behind the treadle, it has a little spring clip, so you can actually reach inside, push this thing back, and adjust it to where you want it. However, pretty much every wah pedal since then has a little screw. You have to adjust it like that. So it's a little more in depth. You can't really hear it in real time as you're adjusting. I like to kind of just hear what it sounds like, how many teeth I think it needs to change. At this point, I think it has to change at least 3 teeth, so I'm going to start with that. Alright, so we've adjusted the pot now. It's much more in the middle, much more of a usable range. If I was going to play it like this, I would spend some more time fine-tuning it. There's a point when, you know, skipping teeth on the treadle, if that's too much of an adjustment, you can actually loosen the pot and turn it slightly if you're really trying to fine-tune where it is. I'm not going to fine-tune it right now because I'm about to change a switch. I'm about to start messing with some transistors to get some different results. And it doesn't really make much sense to try to fine-tune something right now if we're about to change the parameters on everything else. So we'll fine-tune it before we send it back to Elliot, but at this point I'm going to change a switch to true bypass. When I was playing it now, you can hear it every once in a while clicking it off. There would be like a momentary just dead space. So that's the switch, and we're about to fix it. The switch is in, it's wired up for true bypass. I think the wah is starting to really come into its own. An important thing about the switch is you have to set its height correctly. By that I mean you have to make sure that you're not impeding unnecessarily on the travel of the pedal. Also brings me to another point. One thing that I like to do, it was already done on this one, there are rubber stoppers here and here. That ones are harder to see. They're there so that you don't accidentally switch off the wah pedal while you're using it. Anybody who's spent some time getting used to using a wah pedal, I think you can finesse the wah pedal without shutting it off. And so I just tear those out of there because I want as much travel as I possibly can get. Even though the sweet spot is very small, ideally, you want to have that travel. Trust me, you want that. The other thing is making sure the switch isn't set too high, because if it's set too high, it doesn't matter if you just tore those rubber stoppers out. I mean, you're going to be switching it off anyway. How you do that, I brought the old one over here. Each switch, when it is sold, has 2 nuts. All right, laugh it up. So you have this bottom roller. It's usually just a knurled nut. Get your hands on your knurled nut and work it around with your finger. You want to work your knurled nut up the shaft of the switch. This one basically sets your height, right? When you switch your wah pedal, you want this thing to get as close to the enclosure without actually touching it. So when it's fully depressed and the switch is all the way down, that thing is just a CH away from the enclosure. CH, that's a acronym for cat hair. It's a very small hair, not to be confused with a DH, which is a dog hair, slightly more coarse. Anyway, so once you get that set, adjust the height of the switch up and down by getting the knurled nut to a point where you think it should be, putting on the top nut and tightening it down. Then you just basically loosen the top nut and adjust it from there, and when you find what you want, you just tighten it down and you go with it. For all intents and purposes, this wah pedal is good to go. However, my motto is anything worth doing is worth overdoing. 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 So I'm going to make another video about this wah pedal, swapping out transistors, swap out inductors. You know, maybe we'll start messing with the vocal resistor that everyone's so high and mighty about. Who knows? Maybe we'll put a trim pot in. I don't know. The thing I know is that everyone says I shouldn't make long YouTube videos, but apparently y'all have the attention span of a gnat. I'm gonna end this video, and then the next video, catch me outside. How about that? No. Just don't go outside. Stay in your house. Coronavirus is real.